Okay, so the students know that they have to start with a table with their multiples of 10. So you'll draw a table. And what we want to find out with these multiples of 10 is how many of 12 can fit into 516. So why we do multiples of 10 is because we want to do that instead of repeated addition. So we start with 10, 20, 30, 40. Then with our multiples of 10, we are going to multiply those by our divisor. And our divisor is the first number in the problem. The dividend is the first number, or the first number problem. The divisor is the second number in the problem. So what we're going to do is we're going to multiply our multiples of 10 by our divisor. And this is going to just tell us how many times we can fit 12 into our dividend without overlapping. So 10 times 12 would be 120. 20 times 12, you could do 2 times 12 and add a 0, which is 240. 30 times 12, 360. And 40 times 12, 480. So now that we have an idea of how many 12s can fit into 516 without overlapping, because we've used our multiples of 10 instead of doing repeated addition that many times, now we want to find out what two multiples of 10 our dividend can fit between. So we have 516 as our dividend, and we look at our multiples of 10 and the answers that we got when we multiplied, and we can see that 516 is actually not on our table yet because 480 is not bigger than 516. So what we're going to do is we're going to add another multiple of 10. So we're going to draw another box and add 50, and 50 times 12 would be 600. And so now 600 is bigger than 516, which is our dividend. So we know that 516 can fit between the multiples of 10 of 40 and 50. And the students know that we take the smaller side of that, which would be 40, because this represents how many 12s can fit into 516 without overlapping, which is what we're trying to find without the students having to add 12 a bunch of times to figure it out. So we know that so far we can fit 40 12s into 516 without overlapping. So this is the first part of our answer. So I'm going to circle that. I'm going to write it off to the side for later. Okay? Then we want to figure out, since we have taken 480 from 516, because that's how many 12s we were able to fit into 516, now we need to subtract the two numbers to figure out how much is left that we still need to divide. And so to do this, we're going to take 516 and subtract 480 from it. Okay, and that would be, we gotta regroup, and that would be 36. Okay, so that's actually how much we have left to divide. So with that, the next question is how many of our divisor, so how many 12s can fit into what's left to divide. So we have to figure out how many 12s can fit into 36. So the students know they have a different way to look at it, but they can also use their knowledge of their 12s multiplication tables. They can do it in their heads. If they prefer repeated addition for this step, they may, but it's not required. What they can also do is look in their table that they've drawn, see that 36 is very similar to 360, and that all they would have to do is take away the zeros to figure out that 12 times 3 equals 36. So 36 is actually 3 12s, or 3 times 12. So we know that 12 can fit into 36 3 times. So that's the second part of our answer. So I'm going to write that off to the side there. So now that I have both parts of my answer, I know that from the beginning that 40 12s can fit into 516 because 40 times 12 equals 480. I then turned around and subtracted that from what I have to figure out how much is left to divide. And then I figured out how many 12s fits into 36 and what is left. And that equals 3. So now I need to take my both parts of the question and I need to add them together to get my final answer. So my final answer to 516 divided by 12 is 43. If you wanted to check that, you could do 43 times 12, because we know that multiplication and division are inverse operations, meaning they undo each other. So I could do 43 times 12, 3 times 2 is 6, 2 times 4 is 8, add the 0, 3 times 1 is 3, 4 times 1 is 4, and then add those two together, and we get 516, which is what we started with.